where they fed alcohol to stray dogs and stuff like that, right? So it's very abusive.
That is something, that is also a huge, oh my god, I do not have an answer for this. That is also a huge issue.
We hope you are doing good today.
Yes, I am. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. So would like to ask you that from time to time we hear of such cases where dogs are abused on street, right? What do you think of such cases?
It's very sick and it shouldn't be done. People who are doing it, it shows us how sick of mentality do they belong from. So it shouldn't be done.
I feel like, sometimes stray dogs are aggressive towards humans, but that is basically because the humans' behavior towards them. Like when we find a puppy or we get a puppy of our own, we give it love. So it in return shows love towards us. But stray dogs are treated very badly. You know, there are many instances where so many atrocities have happened where their tail are tied with crackers and they are on purposely pelted with stones. Their legs are tied and hanged. It's so unspeakable. It's the worst. So human behavior towards stray dogs are really worse.
True. And you talked about some cases where the dogs are aggressive. I think those become cases of self-defense maybe. But apart from that, most of the cases that we hear of, people do it just to derive some sort of sadistic pleasure out of it. Like you gave the example of tying cracker, and that was a case that we heard of. Even during Holi, we saw some cases where they fed alcohol to stray dogs and stuff like that, right? So it's very abusive. Why do you think it's sick to abuse a dog?
I mean, it's not even related. Let me just clear it out. Are you talking about sexual abuse or
Any type of abuse.
Any type of abuse? So dogs usually don't do you anything. They are minding their own business. So going ahead and harming someone who has nothing to do with you itself shows how sick their mentality is.
Okay, so essentially the reason is that we are harming them even though the victim has done nothing wrong to us. And hence it should not be done, right? And I think the reason for that is that the dog is capable of feeling pain and suffering, right? So we should not cause pain and suffering to them, right?
It's just that maybe they are, as you said, sadistically insane in their minds because maybe they don't have that, maybe their heart is of stone if they do that to such animals. Yes, completely. Lack of empathy if they do that to stray animals because more than breed dogs, they buy breeded dogs, breed them and sell them. But no, stray dogs are needed, that love, that food, and that care. Stray dogs need that more. That's what I feel.
True.
And myself, I have 2 stray dogs at home.
Nice.
So
What are the names?
one is Julie and the other is Maxi, and both are girls. So they are basically like sisters. I've noticed her behavior towards strangers too. When she sees kids or any normal average age persons, she's very sweet and kind to them. But once she finds old drunk men or any grown-up man, even if they don't do anything, she starts barking towards them. So as you said, that's a behavior of self-defense. Maybe she's alerted that, okay, such a man once harmed me, so maybe I should show aggression towards them.
True.
So that's how they react.
And we talked about dogs, but there are other animals as well who are abused because of human consumption, like chickens and goats, right? So what do you think of that?
Okay, this might be hypocritical, but so there is an ecological thing that goes on around the nature. If we don't eat eggs or if we don't eat chicken, the one chicken lays like 8 to 10 eggs, the population would go blast out. So I think that is one thing that is made, a circle that is made to balance out the whole ecological function. So,
But okay, I get it that there is a possibility that if we don't consume them, then their population will explode, right? Let's say there is a method to control the population. In that case, do you think it is okay for humans to subject them to abuse?
abuse, I mean, I am a non-vegetarian myself.
That's okay, I can relate to that. I also hail from a non-vegetarian background, so I can totally relate with that,
I don't know what to say with that. I mean, abusing, as in there have been cases in which, let's say, this might be a bit controversial over here, but beef tropics, in which they, scale out the skin without actually taking care of that they might be feeling the pain, or the goats, they are scaling out the skin without. So things like those things could be stopped.
But even in a regular poultry farm or a butcher shop in India, a typical life of a chicken is that they are forcefully impregnated, then they are captivated, they are kept in cages where they can barely move, their friends and family members are killed in front of them, and eventually they are killed, right? This is still abuse only, right?
It is. Put it that way, yes. Yeah.
And this is the reality. It's not something I've made up, right? This is
obviously. It's happening every day.
Every day. It's just that we have normalized this form of abuse and violence we don't see it as abuse and violence.
Because it's happening with a lot of
Yeah.
the quantity that is happening, and also number of non-vegetarians. So
True.
people just don't pay a heed to it at all. So yeah.
True. But that doesn't change the reality for the victim, right? It is their right to live a natural life is still violated.
Makes sense, yeah.
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 And then, like, how do you justify people like us participating in this abuse?
Like killing and consumption of chickens and all, it's been coming from ages.
Yeah.
So I'm not a vegan to support that, but sometimes they are harmful by humans. They are harmed by humans a lot. Yeah.
True. I mean, yes, of course, it is something which we are doing out of custom for a very long time, and hence it has been normalized, right? But if we think from the perspective of the chick,
Like killing and consumption of chickens and all, it's been coming from ages.
Yeah.
So I'm not a vegan to support that, but sometimes they are harmful by humans. They are harmed by humans a lot. Yeah.
true. I mean, yes, of course, it is something which we are doing out of custom for a very long time, and hence it has been normalized, right? But if we think from the perspective of the chicken, right? Or if you ask them, they would say this is abuse only, right?
Correct. Absolutely, it is abuse. A chicken's life is a life, and a human's life is a life. So killing human, you get gravely punished with death penalty, etc. But killing a chicken, it doesn't even matter.
I really don't know what to say about it, because the non-vegetarians won't stop eating chicken, and there can be ways in which we could reduce the amount of abuse they go through. But again, I do not have an answer for that.
And that's why I asked about a moral justification, because like you said, there isn't any, right? You talked about reduction, right? If we recognize something as abuse, let's think of a human victim, right? Let's say a woman is subjected to abuse by her abusive husband, right? I'm creating a scenario. If we recognize that something wrong is going on, we'll never say that let's ask the husband to reduce the level of abuse. But we'll always say to stop the abuse, right? I'm not comparing the victims here, but I am talking about the concept of how we tackle abuse, right? Does it make sense?
I think it's completely different scenario here, because, now that you're saying it, it's directly a question on people who eat non-vegetarian, for them to stop eating non-vegetarian food completely. And that is a huge issue worldwide.
Yeah, I totally get it.
So and compared to that, the example that you gave, that women being abused, that is something, that is also a huge, oh my god, I do not have an answer for that. That is also a huge issue worldwide, but that is something, again, the hypocrisy kicks in here, that ek taraf agar ho raha hai, so it's okay because it's not one of us.
And that's the concept of otherization, right? When we see another group as someone else who has lesser moral worth than we do, right? And on this concept itself, all human to human oppression has also taken place, right? Casteism, racism, patriarchy and stuff like that, right? Sexism, right? Because we see that the other group has lesser moral worth. Don't you think we are doing the same thing with the animals?
I think we are, now that you put it that way, and I come to think of it, we are.
There's a term for that actually.
It is?
It's called speciesism,
Okay.
where we think that the other species, they do not have the same moral worth as we humans do, or even like difference in moral worth in different species. For example, we give more moral worth to a dog, but not so much to a chicken. And that is out of our own convenience, right? That distinction is not a legit distinction, right?
Yeah, it makes sense, yes. Huh.
And you said that it is happening at a great scale, right? People all over the world are doing it. But just because everyone else is doing it doesn't make it right.
Right, okay. Uh-huh.
In fact, all the change in our society starts with one person. At the time of the change, the abuse or the oppression, it is the popular way of living, right?
It makes sense, but what would be the solution that you're suggesting to this?
And you use the term vegan, so would just like to ask you, like, what do you know about vegans?
The basic vague notion I know about them is that they support not killing of animals. They support eating products that do not affect the animals or do not use animals in that way, including dairy products.
Yes.
Yeah, so
That's true, actually. It's not vague. It's,
Yeah.
it's almost there, 80% correct. right?
correct.
Yeah. So then do you think this notion, is it the right notion to have that not to cause cruelty to animals?
Yes, they are empathetic towards it. So they are what they are because of their empathy towards animals. But there are few who have grown from a young age in such a way that they do not mind eating animals, right? Like non-vegetarians. So as I said, the empathy vegans have or what they are now supporting.
But if you think about vegans, even like we do not have first generation vegans anywhere in, at least in India at least, right? So they were also people who were coming from a background where animals were abused, right? Be it coming from a non-vegetarian background or from a vegetarian background where they consume dairy, right? So probably they realized the issue and then made a change in their life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before I talk about the solution, the first step to implement any solution is to acknowledge the problem. I think you have acknowledged that, right? That what we are doing to them is nothing short of abuse or murder, right?
Okay.
Yeah. On the solution part, have you heard of the term vegan?
I have, yeah.
Do you know who are vegans?
Vegans are people who do not eat any animal-related product at all.
Yeah. And why do they not eat any animal-related product?
It's their choice. That's all I know about it. It's their choice. They choose to not eat any of the animal-related
I mean,
products.
of course, it's their
and
choice.
also they're aware of the animal abuse term of the thing, and therefore they choose to be a vegan.
Yeah. So the opposite of speciesism is veganism.
Okay.
Is it? So a vegan is someone who rejects the commodity status of animals. Vegans do not see animals as someone who is there for human use and abuse, right? So you talked about the solution. The solution is simple, that we live in a capitalistic society where the supply is governed by the demand, right? So vegan is rejecting that demand. Yeah. So when more and more people become vegan, then it will lead to people not breeding these animals, right? Earlier you talked about overpopulation, right? And that is also such a big myth that we humans have.
Okay.
I'll prove it to you in a moment. Can you take a guess how many chickens are killed every year? Random guess, 20 million, 30 million, 500 million, 1 billion.
Wait, 500 million times.
500 million times. ठीक है ना? And we think that if we don't eat them, these 500 million will overpopulate and walk on the streets of Bangalore. This is what we think. When the reality is we kill 60 billion chicken every year. 60 billion, right? And over trillion animals every year. They will not overpopulate. They are already overpopulated because of the greed and the demand that we have created. Right? Once we stop that, they will not overpopulate. Do we know of any other animals that has overpopulated and taken over streets because we are not messing up with them?
I mean, yeah, it makes sense because most of the things happen through hybridization and impregnation of the chickens. So if the demand stops, that all of those processes will stop, and therefore they won't overpopulate. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I am, as you said, almost on the peak of becoming a vegan.
Yeah, that's true.
But but having a family members always constantly eating around me, and cousins, I can't particularly say no and change at once. Yeah.
But if you think that if you have a vegan community around you where more and more number of people are vegans and you get to interact with them, what they are eating on a daily basis, how they are meeting their nutritional requirement, right? If you get to know all of this information, do you think it will be much easier for you to become a vegan?
Yes, like if I am with a vegan, with vegan people, and I look at how they eat or their eating habits, appetite, then obviously my appetite will also change.
True.
It will affect me how they are. Because imagine 4 people eating veg and I'm the only one eating non-veg in front of them. I wouldn't feel like, I would be like, nah, even I will order veg and eat with you. So that is the change.
True. And the change should first come from inside, right? Even let's say if 10 people are doing something wrong, we should, and if we recognize that it is wrong, we should not follow what others are doing, right? It's an appeal to popularity. So I think by now you would have guessed that I am a vegan and a vegan activist as well. Objective of such conversation is to talk to people who are open-minded and have a little bit of empathy within them to think from the victim's perspective, right? And in your case, I can say that you have acknowledged that there is a problem, right? Do you think you will be able to take the next step and consider going vegan in future?
I actually haven't tasted any of the vegan food, but if you cut the taste part completely, I might choose some of the other options, like switching into an almond milk or doing something like that, so that there are few, at least not much, but few steps that are being taken against it.
So taste, I mean, nowadays we have amazing replacement for taste as well, be it the milk, be it the mock meat and stuff like that. But taste at the end of the day is a desire, right? And let's say...
See my dad.
Taste
at the end. But this is one thing I would like to point out is veganism is always, treated as something which would be only afforded by a higher strata of the society.
True.
also, if you go to any vegan restaurant, the costs are
Exorbitantly high.
It's horribly high. So for people to switch into veganism, and if you're telling that it's something that it should be accepted worldwide, we need to take care of all these sections of our society.
Totally
If people like us can switch into veganism, because we have the option to do so, but people who do not belong from our class, they cannot because they don't have an option.
Exactly, I totally get your point, and that's why I make sure that this form of activism or awareness I'm doing to people who have similar levels of privilege as I have. I'm assuming we have similar levels of privilege. That being said, to be a vegan in India is not that difficult because the traditional plant-based diet that most people who consume, irrespective of the class they come from, is vegan by default. We always think of almond milk and avocados, right? But the traditional dal, rajma, chola, chawal, like this is the source of food that most Indians resort to, right? And of course, there are some accessibility issues here and there depending on where the person is living, and that will be sorted out as we move, as we progress with time, right? But for people like us, we have all the options, right? So ultimately, we are choosing to participate in violence and abuse because of our desire, right? And I think desire is a very bad justifier to justify violence, right? Make sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
Something to think about?
It is something to think about. I mean, going forward with just your desire and let's say taste ki haan mujhe butter chicken pasand hai and I'm eating it forever. And if you put it that way, ki there are, I mean, chicken. If you put it that way, ki haan, it is going through some abuse, and so yeah, veganism is an option that one should think about.
I said earlier when you define veganism, you're 80% correct, so I'll just complete the definition. So veganism is not just about diet, right? Diet is a part of it, essential part of it, but veganism is this notion that animals should not be subjected to cruelty, they should not be used, they should not be treated as commodities. They are here for their own existence, and we do not have any right to violate their body, to abuse them. And this makes sense. You think, like, just on the ideological side, do you think you are a vegan?
No.
No, on the ideological side, like,
Ideologically also, like, it would be very tough for me to become a vegan, but
that's the practical side of it. But why they become vegan, that reason is there in you, right?
Yeah, absolutely there. So if I was among your community, then I would be a vegan for sure.
Nowadays, we have a lot of vegans in India as well. In fact, all these people standing here, people on that side of the street, we are all vegans. We come here, we talk to people, educate them on this topic. Thank you so much for this conversation. What I'll do is I'll share some resource cards with you. Okay, and like I said, we have a very big vegan community in Bangalore, and I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to help you out. What you do from here is going to be your choice, and I hope that you make the choice which is pro-justice and compassionate.